Gary Magid, and this is Doing Tech Right. This is a special edition of Doing Tech Right. Rather than me interviewing a guest, this episode is a conversation between Connect Safely Education Director Kerry Gallagher and the PTA's Connected National Ambassador Mikki Wilson, sharing practical strategies and guidance for families. Together, and in response to questions from parents and young people, they address some of the most pressing issues young people and caregivers are facing online today. This episode was recorded in observance of Safer Internet Day, February 10th, 2026.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Smart Digital Parenting, Navigating Screens with Children and Teens. My name is Kerry Gallagher, and I'm here with my co-host.
Hi, I'm Mikki Wilson.
We're excited to be here partnering together on sharing some really crucial information with you and your family when it comes to our digital lives and making sure our families stay healthy. My name, again, is Kerry Gallagher. I serve as the Education Director for Connect Safely. I have also been a full-time educator, teaching and working as an assistant principal in public and private schools for over 25 years. I also am the mom of two teens, ages 14 and 17. So I'm very much in the thick of this every day from lots of different perspectives. And I'm really thrilled about Connect Safely's partnership with PTA. And here with me is Mikki.
Hi, everybody. So again, I'm Mikki Wilson, and my role with National PTA is I am the PTA Connected Ambassador. And what that really means is I get to travel across the United States to a lot of our PTAs and be part of family events where I moderate and hold space so that both adults and teens can ask questions and share their experiences about being online, and also share the resources and the tools that they need to create a safer digital experience. In addition to my role as PTA Connected Ambassador, I am also an entrepreneur, I'm a child advocate, and I'm a PTA member. So this mission is very close to my heart. So I'm looking forward to the conversation today. And so let's begin. Kerry, I'm going to toss it over to you. Our first question is from a PTA Youth Council member.
Hello, my name is Princess, and my question is, what are the most common financial scams that specifically target kids and teens, and what can we do to spot them before we fall for them?
This is such a great question from Princess. I think our scam artists that are out there have become very creative in the ways that they're getting access to us and to our kids, and AI is helping them right now. So the newest scams are ones in which scammers are utilizing the power of AI to make their content more convincing. Some examples of these would be fake influencers and deepfakes. So I don't know if our audience has encountered this, but there are entire Instagram profiles, entire TikTok profiles that are not even real. A real person never appears. It's an entirely AI generated influencer, so to speak. Sometimes these accounts can also be deepfakes of celebrities. So it could be your teen or adolescent's favorite athlete, or their favorite musician, or their favorite actor, or their favorite really anything. And they'll draw users into this fake account. And again, this isn't an account that is sponsored or approved by the actual person. On that deepfake account, they'll promote fake products, and they'll convince their followers to purchase the fake products in order to get their financial information from them. And that's how the financial scam will be perpetrated. Another great example is some synthetic media that can be produced in gaming. So in a DM or a private chat within a gaming platform, there could be a AI-generated bot that starts chatting with a gamer who's a child, convinces them to click a link within that DM, that private chat, that leads them to a fake environment that looks like the game, but it isn't. And then from there, they get them to buy game currency or other things that kids are interested in getting, again, to gain their financial information. And then another example, which is just really media literacy related, is that kids are served up with all kinds of content that's AI generated content in their feeds that may not necessarily be aimed at getting their finances, but it's false information. And so they may be basing some decisions on that false information that could lead to a financial loss down the lines. The other thing I wanted to mention in answer to this question is that our kids can help the adults that they care about become more aware of scams as well. So sometimes if a teen's parents are older parents, or if they're parents who are not really familiar or adept at using technology, or if they're really close to their grandparents, there are certain scams that they can help the adults that they care about keep an eye out for. So for instance, adults are particularly susceptible to texts from government agency impersonators like the IRS or the Social Security Agency, claiming that you owe them some information, or they're going to fine you or report you to law enforcement. And that can lead to the user giving up some really important personal information. Another example that adults tend to fall for are tech support scams, where they're claiming that your device has been infiltrated by a virus and you need to call them in order for them to log into your device to save your device from the virus. But really, they're just logging in there and mining for some of your private data. And there's a few others as well, such as charity or disaster relief fraud schemes. There's also emergency schemes where you get a deep fake voice that sounds a lot like a family member calling you and telling you that they're in trouble and they need you to send money right away to save them. And again, that's all AI generated. So in addition to the schemes I mentioned at the beginning of the answer to the question that kids should look out for that are targeting them, kids can really help the adults they care about keep an eye out for these AI generated scams as well. All right, our next question is for you, Mikki, and it comes from a Connect Safely Youth Advisory Council member.
Hi, I'm Juliana. I'm one of Connect Safely's peer advisors, and my question is, what should kids do if a private or embarrassing picture of them, whether photo or made by AI, is shared in a group chat or online?
This is such a good question. The first thing I want to say to do in that situation is just pause and breathe. You're not in trouble, and you are definitely not alone in this situation. I've heard a lot of situations like this. I think the first step after you pause and breathe, that just helps calm yourself, is let a trusted adult know about the situation so that they can involve the appropriate parties, right? Whether that is the school principal down to legal authorities if necessary. A trusted adult, it could be a parent or a caregiver, but it could also be someone like a trusted teacher, again, a principal, a coach, or even the parent of a friend, right? That close family friend. Next steps I would say is don't forward or respond publicly or even escalate the situation emotionally, right? We're trying to stay calm and take some steps so that we can take proactive action. I would say save the evidence if it is appropriate for the situation, right? Document screenshots, usernames, timestamps. But the first feature that's always available if it is not an intense situation is use the platform reporting and blocking tools if that's more appropriate, right? I hear teens always talk about, I blocked the person that said something in the comments, right? I didn't respond to the comments, or they use those other safety features that kind of give more privacy to maybe a public account. I really want to reinforce, especially for teens, that asking for help or support is a strength. It is not a weakness when you ask for what you need. Again, we can take those proactive decisions. And in National PTA, we often refer to 3 Ps. We're trying to be practical, positive, and proactive in any of these situations. So again, I just want to emphasize that have ongoing conversations. It always starts with a conversation, usually those conversations about how we're using platforms, how we're using digital media, that leads to what we need before something actually happens. So that's how I would approach that situation. Kerry, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
The only thing I would add is that it's okay to start by reaching out directly to the person who shared the photo and tell them that you're uncomfortable with what they shared so that they're clear moving forward about what your boundaries are for what's acceptable and what's not. And it could be that as a result of that very simple conversation, that person kind of retracts the photo and apologizes, and it could actually be over. So you could go those further steps that Mikki shared just to get the support that you needed, or if that conversation doesn't go well and you need some additional steps to be taken. But remember that you are empowered to take control of your own relationships with your friends. So if it's a friend who did that, or a classmate or something else, don't be afraid to have that hard conversation in a nice, calm way with that person, because maybe they didn't realize it wasn't appropriate to share that image, and you can be an important person to teach them that life lesson so they don't do it again in the future.
Oh, such a great point. Each one teach one. I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
method.
It's great.
This next question comes from a local PTA leader.
How can parents help their kids if private information or photos have been shared without their consent?
Yeah, really good question. And I think it's a great one as like the next step forward to the one you just answered, Mikki, because if it happens to our kids and they do come to us because we're the trusted adult, like you suggested, Mikki, then what do we do? What's the right move? First thing to do is to acknowledge their feelings, because if they're coming to you about it, it's something they're worried about. Just remember that the thoughts about it have already been rolling around in their heads and in their hearts for a while before they've decided to come to you. And it took some courage to come to you in the first place. So acknowledging their feelings and letting them sit in their feelings for a little bit before you move into problem solving mode is really important. They might just need the emotional support to start. Ask them if they're ready to move forward with a solution before you kick into that mode. As a parent, I can tell you this is a mistake I still make. I move into problem solving mode very quickly. And I think it's common because we want to fix things for our kids, especially when they're hurting. And it's something that I'm always working on. So just know that that's something that I'm focusing on and that all of us can work on as parents. The next thing to do is to ask them what solutions they've considered. So have they considered talking to the individual? Do they know the person personally, or is it a stranger from online? Have they considered whether they want to report it to their school? Will it impact their life at school because of people who they go to school with know about this? If it doesn't impact school, but maybe it affects one of their teams or another group that they're a part of, how do they want to handle sharing that information with the people in that group so that they can still feel comfortable going to school, going to practice, going to rehearsal, going to their community service group, wherever it might be that they have those important communities that are a part of what kind of keeps them feeling stable day to day. And then make sure that before you enact any of these solutions, you sort of have your child's blessing. So they know what's going to happen. They're going to be a part of that. They maybe even are, if it's an email that you're sending, they're on the email thread so that, and you note that they're on the email thread to the person you're sending it to. So everyone's a part of the conversation the whole time. Of course, that's age appropriate. But for the most part, middle and high schoolers like to be a part of their own solutions. And so including them in those phone conversations or email conversations is important. And then finally, if it is something that rises to the level of reporting it, because it's a private photo that is compromising, it's something you could report to NCMEC's cyber tip line. And if you were just to search NCMEC cyber tip line, it would come up right away, the first results in any search. And it's easy to call or report it. And they can support you with getting the image removed if it's something that's been posted online, and reporting it to law enforcement if that's a step that makes sense. Also, I think it's important for parents to understand that what we consider private and what our children consider private might be different thresholds. And so a child may come to you with something that they consider kind of compromising, and you're kind of like in your head thinking, why is this a big deal? But if they're coming to you, it is a big deal. So we need to operate as if it's a big deal, even if it doesn't meet our threshold for privacy. And we need to move forward according to that reality, the reality that they're growing up in, and that they're being socialized in. Mikki, anything else you could add there?
Yeah, I have a couple of quick points, but I think overall what you shared was great. Is once you determine what has been shared, you can then decide what the appropriate next steps are. Some things I'll always touch on again is reminding both teens and parents and caregivers that you have access to the platform's reporting and blocking tools. Again, if that's appropriate, documenting things. I would say go in and review privacy settings if that's relevant to your situation once things happen like this. I feel like once something happens, it's always a reminder to us to how to kind of tighten up those boundaries around us, even digitally. And I would encourage discussing strategies for preventing potential further instances or situations from happening. When I am talking to families, I love promoting a tool that we have as part of PTA Connected, and it's called the Smart Talk. And I like that tool because, again, it centers around having these preventative conversations, and it has a really cool tech agreement. So it echoes what you're saying, Kerry, in that the agreement can be made between teens and their parents or caregivers, right? So it's not just the parent or the caregiver deciding, it's really having that talk together so you can decide together the steps going forward. And again, yeah, I agree with you. It's totally empowering.
Mhm. One more thing I was thinking of when you mentioned prevention that I probably should have said in my answer is that something that I've done with my children and even with my students that I work with every day is when I ask them this question, they think the answer that adults want them to say is, oh, I just block them. And so that's their default answer. They answer very quickly. But the truth is, in reality, this happens most often between children who already know each other and have a relationship. And so they don't feel like they can block them because they're going to still see them the next day. They still have mutual friends. They can't block them when they're in a group chat because then they couldn't participate in the group chat with the rest of their social group. And so it's important to talk through scenarios. Okay, it's a stranger, so you'd block them. That's easy. What if it's and name the name of a friend that you know that they have? What if it's Michael? What if he did it? What would you do?
Right.
And that's going to cause them to pause. And that is a really healthy conversation for you to have to help prepare them for when and if this does happen in a situation that they didn't expect. And I think one thing that I always say to my kids is that you can always come to me and I will not freak out. And I said, I will be feeling emotions. And there may be some things that I do where I'm expressing emotions. It's because I love you, but you can remind me that we had this conversation and that I promised I wouldn't freak out. And so it's a two-way street. I also have said to them, if you have friends who are afraid to tell their parents, they can always tell me and I will help them figure out how to work it out. And generally what I mean there is I will help them figure out how to tell their parents. But if they need a safe adult and their parent, they have friends whose parents are not their first thought, I would like to be the person to make that connection so that that family can come together in that circumstance.
Yeah, the concept of safe spaces and trusted adults is so important so that, again, we find out what we need to know so we can handle it appropriately. But that was a good comment on the blocking, right? I see that a lot too. Just, oh, we blocked it, but you can't block life once you get offline.
Yeah, important tools to use in the right context,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
The next question I believe is for you, Mikki, and it's from a PTA leader.
Why does it seem like kids are attached to their phones on video chats or texting with their friends more than ever? Have smartphones changed the dynamics of teen
This
friendships?
this is a great question. For anybody thinks that they may be imagining whether phones have changed anything, I will say that the dynamics have changed. We knew phones as a tool, right, for us to use, but I think they've become primarily a social space, especially for teens. And I think that what friendship looks like today, it includes constant connection. I know I'm from a generation where friendship was more of scheduled interactions, right? But there is that constant connection now. And for many teens, I think the lines are blurred, and there is really no line between online life and real life, right? So we're seeing this intersection between the lives we live online and offline. I don't think friendships aren't less real, or the social interactions. I don't think those are less worthwhile just because they occur in this online space. Um, I think that having constant access to devices can definitely result in pressures to feel like you need to be constantly available to respond. And again, that's where those healthy digital habits come in, and having the conversations at home, finding those practical and proactive ways where we're not limiting access, but we're really figuring out what is healthy for us. So, kind of diminishing that access to informal, those informal public gathering spaces usually means that teens have fewer opportunities for unstructured social time with their friends. So they have online spaces to do this. So that's why the healthy habits are important, because they're finding the balance between when they want to be offline and spend that time deepening and building friendships, but having that constant connection. Also, they're creating friends in new places and spaces beyond their backyard. I do want to say this because moderating panels, again, talking to teens who are very vocal about this, as well as adults. I want to touch on again that adult modeling really matters here, because our kids at especially at those impressionable ages, but really at any age or stage, they really notice our device habits. They are quick to point out the device habits of adults. So as we see more adults increasingly attached to their phones and devices, I'm seeing situations and hearing and asking teens to share their experiences where teens are actually teaching their parents how to use social media, right? They're helping them figure out what is real information from misinformation. They're teaching them how to use some of the safety features on the platforms. And so again, adult modeling matters, but it also then comes back to we're using the technology together and we're having those conversations and really learning each other's experiences. So yeah, the dynamics are changing, but if we start with conversations and again, use those 3 Ps, be positive, be proactive, and be practical, you can create those healthy digital habits for your home. And I will finish by saying there is no one size fits all approach. I feel like that's what people are looking for, but it's really different for every household, for each child, and for adults. So I think I'll stop there. And Kerry, if you have any points you want to add too, feel free.
Yeah, 2 scenarios with this that I have encountered that are fundamentally different than the way my friendships unfolded in my adolescent and teen years are that I find that kids are sometimes spending hours at a time on FaceTime with each other or on a video chat, and they just like carry each other around the house. And when that started happening in my home, I was a little taken by surprise that like this friend of my child was like in my kitchen with me. And I had not sort of consented to being on video live in that moment. I was, as you might imagine, no longer dressed for being out in public, just not even thinking that I was on camera. And so I was able to have a conversation with my children about if that friend is going to be carrying around the house, you just need to notify the people in the room that they're coming. And other homes may be like that carrying a friend around the house on video chat is not permitted, right? We also talked about when the mic should be muted, when it shouldn't be muted, depending on what conversations are happening around you. But also, it's an opportunity as a parent when that child appears in my kitchen while I'm there, I can pop into the frame and say like, hi, and make a connection with my child's friend so that I'm able to help also nurture that relationship and help my child understand that a relationship with your friend is also means that like your parents are a part of it and we're all part of this community together and I'm supporting you and I'm supporting this friendship because I support you. And then The other one is that they often seem like they feel like they have to respond to every message they're getting, either on Snapchat or on iMessage, like immediately, especially in group chats. And those group chats can be incredibly active, like it's a constant stream of information. That's a real tough one because sometimes adolescents tend to evaluate how much that other person cares about them by how quickly they respond to a message. It tends to, that judgment fades out as they get into their older teen years, as they get into like sophomore, junior, senior year of high school, but especially 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, that timing of the response is very important and there's a lot of weight put on it. So that's a conversation you may want to have with your child proactively before you start giving them access to those group messaging apps on their phone, and making sure that their friends know that like between the hours of like 6 and 7:30, I have practice and I don't have access to my phone. So if I don't respond, like you have to know that I've been at practice and it isn't about that. Or my parents don't let me have my phone at the table during dinner and there's absolutely nothing I can do about that. Or my parents take my phone from me at 9 p.m. and so I won't respond after. And you can always be your child's out. Like even if it isn't that you take their phone away at 9 p.m. or even if, you know, they have access to their phones during times that that they're saying they don't. I've told my kids, you can always blame it on me if you need a break so that you can take that break. And as a result, also, we have the agreement that if I think they need a break, I can speak up and say something about taking that break. So those are two nuances, the video chats in my kitchen and those group chats that are always rolling.
I think those are good nuances because the video chats in the kitchen, consent is very important, right? I found myself talking in a conversation about that earlier today with the amount that people take pictures of us when we're face painting or when we're at events and everything. But this consent is so important. And then that other layer of communication and deepening those relationships with your children's friends, right? By being able to pop in the screen and be that background, as I like to call it, the background dancer in their lives sometimes.
Yeah, I like that. That's great. Great metaphor. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we have another question, and this question is from a Connect Safely Youth Advisory Council member.
Hi, my name is Eliza, and I'm a member of Connect Safely's Youth Advisory Council. I believe that students can use AI in small ways that help make their learning more efficient. Using AI to study, for example. That sort of thing is more so permissible than would be using AI to completely do assignments. How can students decide if it is okay to use AI for schoolwork? Thanks so much.
This is so great because this is something I talk about. I work at a school every single day. I do teach one class still, even though my role is as an assistant principal. And I also have high school and middle school students in my home. So I have this conversation in lots of different roles nearly every day. And I think the first step that kids need to take is to be very open with asking their teachers what uses of AI are okay in this class and what uses are not, in case the policy is not clearly delineated in like a syllabus that's distributed. Check the school handbook and see what it says. A lot of schools have started to implement policies around that. What I've noticed is that a lot of the policies say that it's up to the teacher. That isn't true across the board, but it is a very common practice. And so asking the teacher directly and from a place of curiosity is important. Some teachers will say it depends assignment to assignment. So you may need to ask for each assignment if you're planning to use it. But I think Elisa, the way you frame the question is great. We recently had an instance in my school where the teacher asked us about a use of AI that a student was using in class, not necessarily to answer the question outright, like to generate the entire assignment, but using it as a study tool during class time. And I think that's an interesting nuance, right? Because I think using it as a study tool when you're at home and you don't have access to the teacher makes a lot of sense, as long as it's not generating the assignment. But using it as a study tool when you're in the classroom and you could ask the teacher, right, who's a human expert, and you have the opportunity for human connection, that might not be the best choice. You really want to access that teacher as that resource during that short time. What do you have, 45 to 60 minutes with a teacher? Not even every day. Most schools, it's 3 to 4 days a week. So I think knowing the nature of the use, are you using it to do the assignment for you, or are you using it to help you learn, right? And in what context are you using it? Are you using it when you're by yourself and other resources for learning are limited? Or are you using it in a context where you have lots of other resources around you, like classmates and teachers and tutors and learning coaches and other resources that schools have available. Other uses that I think are great are proofreading and feedback on assignments. I think asking it to come up with a study guide for you, knowing you have a test coming, asking it to, once you've typed something yourself, asking it to do a little proofreading and make suggestions. But then remember, after it proofreads and makes suggestions, you choose which ones to implement and which ones not to implement, knowing that the AI is not you and you're the one being graded on the assignment. The AI is not getting the grade, you are. And so it has to represent your work. It's also good for accessibility support. If you're someone who, while you're reading, it helps for you to listen to what you're reading, you could ask AI to read along with you a text so that you could hear it and read it while you're kind of marking up your book or your article at the same time. If you just learned a new math in pre-calc and in class, it seems so clear and you thought you'd be good to go when you got home, but then when it's time to do your homework, you're struggling to remember it and you need help clarifying the concepts, I think it's okay for reteaching when you're alone at home. I think all those uses are great. Asking it to do that pre-calc homework for you, not okay, because you're still going to have to take the test later and that's not helping you learn. Asking it to write the essay for you, not okay, because if you're asked to explain your reasoning in a paragraph, or if you're asked to take that essay and turn it into some kind of explainer video or cartoon later, you're making it much harder for yourself down the line. So knowing those nuances can help you make the decision, but always start by asking the teacher which uses they're comfortable with and which uses they're not. Mikki, anything to add on that one?
No, I think I learned some things there too, Kerry. Like I have nothing. Those were good ones to hit for sure. And I think what I just heard from myself personally is that it's a tool. It's a tool. AI is a tool that can help you, right? But it can't take the test for you at the end of the day. So I thought that was great. A great share.
Yeah. And I think the other thing for kids to know about the use of AI in school is that the adults, we're trying to figure it out right now too. So if you ask an adult and their answer is really different from another adult, just know that's because the adults are trying to figure out how this fits in school in the proper ethical way, at the same time as you're trying to figure out how it fits into your schoolwork in a proper ethical way. So the more we're talking about it together and we're teaming up, the better to make this work for all of us in a way that's going to help us the most and hurt us the least. I think our next question is for you, Mikki. This is from a PTA Youth Advisory Council member.
So, as youth, especially during this day and age, lots of us like to play games, and we like to use in-game chats to engage with other players. What are some of the biggest risks that we should watch out for? And how can we ensure that the youth are staying safe online while still engaging with and being part of the community?
Oh, such a good question, Ian. Gaming is also social, right? And we know again that connection has real benefits, but there definitely are big risks. And I think some big risks off the top of my head are the oversharing of personal information, right? Being careful who you're sharing your info with. We have discussed like harassment and toxic behavior online. That's a big risk. And this pressure that I hear to move, the chats that are happening on gaming platforms offline. So those are some of the biggest risks that I've picked up in some of these more recent conversations. And I think the most important thing to do, because I'm going to always center it back to having conversation, right? Is talking with your parents about the privacy rules. What is allowed, what's not allowed. So for example, are you allowed to game only with friends you know, or are you allowed to game generally online with certain safeguards around that? I think, again, it's always important to really know and use the platform safety features, right? You can mute people, you can report things, you can block other players if they're not following the platform's guideline, if you feel like they may be bullying, or it just feels like it's moved from healthy to unhealthy, or even toxic. And I would say, when you're gaming online, trust your instincts, right? If you are uncomfortable, discomfort is an actual signal. So again, reminding you, don't share your personal information online. You want to try to prevent that. And if something feels off, again, tell a trusted adult. Safety doesn't mean opting out of community. It just means that we have to know what the boundaries are. We have to trust ourselves in those signals. We have to be very cautious when we're in new communities, right? If we're just getting on gaming platforms. So some of those things come up for me. And I want, teens and adults, right? Think about the kinds of communities that you want to be part of, and consider how you can participate in building that kind of community online. We have, again, a PTA connected resource. We have a program called Build Up and Belong. And that program really gives great resources and tools and really helps create discussions around how to build more safe and positive online communities, and especially when it comes to gaming. So I think those are the things that come up for me. I know gaming can be great. Gaming when I was a teen is a lot different now. There is a community component to it. But again, I think it starts with a conversation. Go back to that tech agreement that I talked about earlier. But when you have the conversation, there are already rules in place. I think that mitigates a lot of those big risks. But I'll always say, just don't share personal information, trust your instincts, and know who you, whether it's your parents, caregivers, or that trusted adult, know who you can turn to if something feels off and you need someone to talk to. Anything to add on that?
No, I really love what you said about putting into the gaming community what you're hoping to get out of it. Like, make the gaming space that you're contributing to positive, encouraging, competitive, if that's what you want. That's totally fine. Creative, if that's why you're there. Any of those things. Make it collaborative if you're on a team in your game. Make it into that thing. Be a contributor that makes it that way, so that it is that way because you helped contribute to that environment. I think that's great. And the only other thing I would add is that sometimes what can happen in games that's concerning will happen in places that are a little more private, like DMs or group chats. And sometimes in group chats, you may be enticed to click on a link from another user who wants you to chat kind of offline. And that's kind of where some of those dangerous things can happen, where they're trying to get you to chat within a different app that isn't the gaming app. So beware those requests. If they want to talk with you in a place that's more private, ask yourself, why does it have to be private in order for them to talk to me? Why can't they talk to me right here on the game? And could their motivations be something that are really not a place that I want to go? So that's sort of my gamer beware. But enjoy those competitions and collaborations and communities, just like Mikki said.
Totally. Gaming, when you think about it, right? Games are supposed to be fun. So that's the spirit that we are trying to bring to gaming as well. So in that awareness too, that sentiment is very important. I think our next question here is from a local PTA leader, and it's for you, Kerry.
Hi, I'm Leslie from Colorado. My kids show me some of the videos that they see on social media, and I'm wondering how parents can proactively help our kids think about some of the extremist content in their short form video feeds.
This is such a great and important question. Thank you, Leslie. I think something that parents can do around this content is to first, the preventative work we can do is to anticipate what the content might be. And a lot of times it's framed by what we're seeing in the news media. So doing our best to be informed citizens and having some awareness about how events nationally and internationally and even locally are being reported. What's the bias in the news media that we're seeing, the tilt on either side, and how might that creep into a short form video in a way that's either deceiving or doesn't tell the whole story, or only shares sort of one side or one perspective. most of the times the stuff that's in our short form video is meant to convince us of something. It isn't meant to give us a journalistic, unbiased report of it. And so I know that when I'm talking to the teens that I serve, both at school and at home, I will try to make sure I'm proactively talking to them about the news stories I know that they're seeing. And sometimes they haven't seen it yet. And I'm the one sharing the information with them. And when that happens, I'm so grateful because I know I can share varying perspectives on the story and then encourage them to go look it up so that they're able to see it through the lens where they've been informed by me and not informed by some influencer who I don't actually know and who I don't know how much of their own kind of investigation they've done before reporting it. But in particular, there's two areas for teen girls and teen boys that are worth parents knowing about and digging into themselves. When it comes to teen girls, some of the content that tends to be served up by the algorithm, once it figures out that she's a teen girl, is information around body image and dieting and what a teen girl's body should, quote unquote, look like. And sometimes that content can be pretty harmful depending on the personality, the outlook, the sort of emotional well-being of that individual child. It could also depend on the sports or activities she participates in. For instance, if she's a dancer or a gymnast or a swimmer, her body is kind of exposed a lot as part of her routine. And so there may already be some body image concerns that you're concerned about. And then also if she's exposed to it when she's just kind of chilling on her phone, that's a lot of body image thinking. That's a lot of her time taking up with those thoughts. Oftentimes this content can encourage unhealthy calorie restriction, unhealthy activity levels. It can sort of put certain body types on a pedestal. And so talking to our teen girls about that all bodies look very different and that all bodies are important because everybody serves a purpose in a very individual way. And to talk about the people that we love and all the different body types that they have and that our love for them doesn't depend on their body type. And to make sure that we're really clear about those values, that's kind of some preventative talk that we can have so that when they're served up with that content, they can talk to us about it, we can ask them about it, and we can recall those conversations. When it comes to teen and adolescent boys, the recent research we're finding is that it's serving up some of the toxic masculinity messages around what a real man is and the type of power men should have over other men or over women in society. And we certainly don't want that type of pressure or that type of sort of expectation for our boys to have for themselves or expectation for them to have around their relationships. We want them to be in relationships that are equitable, that are fair, in which they have a voice and the other person has a voice. We don't want them to measure their worth around the size of their muscles, around how much money they're going to make in the career that they choose. We don't want them to measure their worth depending on whether they are willing to fight someone. We don't want them to fight at all, right? So this is some of the content that they're likely to see in their algorithm once the platform figures out their identity. And so talking about these topics in terms of your family values and what's important to you with your child in a preventative way can help with managing the content that they see as it's served up. Mikki, what can you add?
I thought that was great, actually. Really widens my view around like what extremist content is, right? Because we may have a cognitive perception of what that is to us, and the way you just widen it from the political things to the toxic masculinity to girl body image. I just thought that was so beautiful how you brought all that together. Mine's pretty simple, I think. I find myself, and again, this is for the adults, the parents, the caregivers, I find myself always encouraging you to not only be aware of the content that your teen or child is consuming, but to really be curious. too, right? Because again, that sparks great conversations, and you can learn from your child can learn from you. But I would say it's twofold: be aware, but also be curious. And again, know what tools you have at your call. So utilize those parent safety features, right? I'm thinking of things like family pairing in particular. I know Instagram has Instagram teen accounts now, and some things like that that really, again, keep their focus on what they like to consume for content and what they like to learn, and kind of narrows out that extremist content on either side. I think it's important to help your teen understand how the algorithms work. But again, I will share a funny little story in a second. I think it's important to know how the algorithms work and push the content to their feeds, right? Because the algorithm really helps them curate what they're seeing on their timeline. And we want to make sure that what's on their timeline matches those values that you just brought up. And worst case scenario is use the algorithm reset tool if you need to. Again, if that extremist content is coming into the timeline, you can always reset the algorithm. But again, I think it's important that we're trying to really curate an algorithm that matches your teen's values and your values. Two last things. I would encourage your teen to consider questions, right? Critical questions when they encounter media that they may find questionable or alarming. And those critical questions are really considering the source of the content. What is the goal here? Who benefits from believing in the content? Again, doing work with teens and having been a teacher as well, I just like to encourage that kind of critical thinking. Let's go beyond the surface. I will end it by saying, again, it starts with a conversation with what your teen with your teen about what's going on in the world, and really help them understand and navigate and how to find reliable resources or that balanced content. I will end with a funny story. We did an event, and one of our teens that was on the panel sharing about their experience, they were telling us how they have to help their parents identify real information from misinformation. So just want to say a shout out to the teens here because they are digital natives. They've really grown up with this technology, and sometimes they can help us determine what is real and what may not be real too. So I just want to note that. I pick up some funny stories along the road, and adults, yes, we teach our children, but also there are a lot of instances where they're actually teaching us in real time.
Yeah, great point. And that's why I mentioned some of the scams that teens can help keep their adults informed about at the top of the webinar, because there are scams designed specifically to hit each age group on the areas that they are most susceptible. And so we can all learn from each other, just like teachers and students can learn from one another about AI. Parents and children can learn from each other about online safety and scams, and some of the other things that you mentioned too. Thanks for that great question, Leslie. I think it's a great one to talk about in terms of media literacy, and it's really important because it's something for all of us to keep tabs on, not just kids. All of us need to really pay attention. So thank you. We're going to move into our lightning round, Mikki. So the format for the lightning round is that you and I are asking each other questions, and we are limited to 1 minute answers. This is going to be hard for you and I, but I believe in us.
I believe in us too. I believe in us too. And I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, but I'm going to ask you a question that buys me some time to think about whatever you ask me.
Okay.
My question is we touched on AI earlier, and AI, artificial intelligence, it is here to stay. What is one smart way that families can use it safely and positively?
Okay, there are so many possible uses, but I'm going to give one because I have 1 minute. And that is when your kids come to you and they say that they're bored, but you want the solution to that boredom to be not a screen or not technology. Use AI to help you come up with 5 to 10 options. So you could say, my child is an 8-year-old girl. She is bored. We live in this region and the weather outside is this, so that the AI knows whether an outdoor and indoor activity would be appropriate, right? We have these supplies available, right? It might be markers, paper. We have a library full of books. We have a gaming closet. We have old dress up clothes from when she was littler. We have Legos. We have, name all the things you have available. And none of the options can involve digital technology. Go, give me options. And it can give you a bunch of options, and then you can choose from those options. So use AI as a boredom buster. That's my answer.
Oh, that was good. And I feel like that was 60 seconds. Use AI as a boredom buster. I like this.
All right. All right. Your 1 minute. Are you ready or not? Here it comes, Mikki.
Whoa.
What is one tech rule or boundary that actually works in your home or with the families that you've coached?
Yeah. Don't make password the password. That's we do a fun little activity called Pearls of Wisdom, and that's the one that always comes to mind. So I'd like to say that people are still using password as the password. So I think that's one tech rule. And so I'm going to cheat. That's my one tech rule, but a boundary, since we're talking boundaries and what I've seen that works in homes and the families that we've talked to, I'm just going to go around the rules, right? Those set the boundaries. Rules work best when they are co-created and not dictated. So I just want to cover what we said earlier. I think a great boundary is include your child in the conversation. I think we could just talk about boundaries and why they exist, right? Not just the rule. I think flexibility is important. I want parents, adults, caregivers, myself to model the boundaries themselves and keep it realistic and something they can revisit. It doesn't have to be rigid. I think one of the things I've heard and seen, again, being the connector of both sides, is sometimes we just assume that kids know what we know, and that's not the case. So I think that's why it's important to talk about what are boundaries, how can we set them, how can we role model them, and then when it comes to tech rules, it is just make it harder for the people that may want to get your information. So don't make password the password. I'm going with that being my tech rule.
Love it. That's a great one.
I think this might be our last question here. So this question is for you. I'm curious, what might parents notice in a child's behavior online or offline that might signal trouble?
Yeah, sure. Great question. I think when they're looking for an amount of privacy on their phone that feels abnormal. So for instance, more privacy than you would need on your phone as an adult. Or when they're on their phone, they're very secretive. They're sitting in a corner of the couch and they don't want anyone to look over their screen. Or when they're on their device in their room and you come in to say hello, they seem startled and uncomfortable. Anytime that there's a level of discomfort that goes kind of beyond the level of transparency that would be an expectation in your home, that is a warning sign and something you may want to bring up and ask about your child with curiosity. Another thing is that if you're noticing some level of insomnia or they're not sleeping because they're worried about what's happening on their phone, either because their phone is in their room where they sleep or because their phone is outside their room and they feel a pull to it even when they're not with it and they're having a hard time sleeping as a result. Those are two warning signs. There are more, but I would say those are the two that rise to the top and are the easiest to notice and to address with your child, because those are behaviors that they would likely believe that you notice, because over time, those are patterns that are pretty visible. Great lightning round. I feel like we did a great job keeping those short. Yeah, we did. With that, I just want to thank our audience. If you found some of the content that Mikki and I shared today helpful, we would really encourage you to find out more about the resources that our organizations share. Connect Safely, the organization that I am fortunate to be a part of, we have amazing resources associated with Safer Internet Day for families and for educators and for kids at safer.connectsafely.org. And all throughout the year, you can find our videos, our very quick guides, which are one-pagers, and our longer, more detailed guides, in addition to timely articles that respond to things that are happening and developing in the news around technology and safer internet use at ConnectSafely.org. So that's safer.connectsafely.org for Safer Internet Day and ConnectSafely.org year-round. And Mikki, the PTA Connected Initiative is something we're so grateful for the partnership with.
Oh, thank you so much. And we are grateful for the partnership with you as well. And I will just direct people to our website, pta.org/PTA Connected. You will find our resources there. We have resources online for every age and stage. Those programs, the things that I mentioned earlier, like the Smart Talk, where you can start that conversation, have a tech agreement in your household and feel empowered, both you and your child automatically. The Build Up and Belong program. We have a Create with Kindness program. I would encourage you to visit that website. Find the program that works for you. There's more resources and tools. But again, I just want to end by saying, start the conversation, keep it positive, proactive, keep it practical. And I really just want to remind parents, I know we're layering in addition, we're adding on an additional layer of parenting, right? This digital parenting. Those tools are there to help you navigate this. You're not alone. And there is no one size fits all approach. So again, visit us if you need some resources in your household or in your school or in your community.
That's great advice. Thank you. Mikki, it's time for some final thank yous. What do you have from PTA and their supporters?
I would just like to thank our sponsors that help us make this work possible. So thank yous to TikTok, Discord, AT&T, Google, and Norton. Those are some of the partners that have been working with us to make this possible.
And on behalf of Connect Safely, I'd like to thank our supporters, which include Amazon Kids, Discord, Google, Meta, OpenAI, Roblox, Snap, TikTok, and of course, National PTA. My name is Kerry Gallagher. I'm so grateful for the time you spent with us, and I'm so grateful for Mikki Wilson for being my co-host. Thank you, and happy Safer Internet Day.
Doing Tech Right is produced by Christopher Lee. Maureen Cochan is executive producer. Theme music by Will Magid. I'm Larry Magid.